Hey there, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Game Plan. It's week 12, and we're breaking down the DraftKings main slate. We'll hit all the big questions this week. Which teams are fighting to stay alive? Who is planning for the draft for next year? And is there a need for value plays on the slate? Lots of lopsided matchups this week, injury concerns, people coming back from injuries that we're watching also. But we don't have any weather to navigate this week. Don't forget to hit subscribe and drop your favorite plays in the comment for week 12. Let's go through teams on bye. So we've got 4 teams on bye. We've got Denver, the Chargers, Miami Dolphins, and Washington Commanders all on bye. And all also off of the main slate are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who will be playing at the Los Angeles Rams. That should be a fun game. That's Sunday night. And Monday night, Carolina and the San Francisco 49ers are playing. So those are all off of our main slate, and we don't have to worry about them, as well as the Thursday night game, which takes away Buffalo and Houston.
Yeah, I think that Carolina 49ers game will be a sneaky good game, too.
I think so, too. I'm excited for both of those. They definitely have some of the better matchups for this week because we've got some really lopsided ones. Let's jump into the first game with the highest point total, which is very lopsided to kick us off, which is the New York Giants at the Detroit Lions. Detroit's favored by 10.5. The over-under is 50, which surprised me a little bit. I think we're expecting the Lions to get back to average after their really bad performance against the Eagles last week.
Yeah, we're kind of completely flipping the Lions script. Now they are at home coming off a loss instead of being outdoors on that game against the Eagles. I like targeting the Lions this week. It's just trying to figure out which one it's going to be and that kind of correlation between the Lions players.
Yeah, definitely. Jared Goff can't play outside. I hate to tell him that the Super Bowl is going to be outside this week in San Francisco, or this year in San Francisco. And if he happens to make it there, he's not going to be very happy because it's outside. I don't know what it is, but he just hates playing outside. So let's look at the quarterbacks in this game. We have Jared Goff coming off probably maybe one of his worst performances ever. His completion rate was just under 38%. That's crazy. He threw it 37 times, but only 14 completions last week in their loss to the Eagles. And then we have Jameis Winston, who we were hopeful that, the Giants were going to unleash Winston and just let him toss it, but they kind of kept him in check last week, and we didn't get that big passing game.
The Giants are one of those teams. Yeah, we'll talk about a couple other that fit this mold later, but it seems like their goal on the week is to not be embarrassed. And so they're fine kind of running the ball a little bit more than normal and just getting through the game and hope it's under double digits, and then they can kind of move on to the next week.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know why that makes a difference. If you lose by 40 points or if you lose by 20 points, it doesn't really matter. Just entertain us. Give us something entertaining.
The other thing,
go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing with Jameis too is like the weapons on the Giants are just so depleted. I mean, he's out there. There was no Darius Slayton last week either. So his main target was probably the running backs, and then he was trying to get Wan'Dale Robinson and Theo Johnson involved. I don't think it's going to get much better for Jameis. Do you like Goff here?
I don't, because I don't think this game stays competitive enough to push Goff to have 4 or 5 touchdowns. He'll have a couple. They'll spread the ball around. They'll get everyone, some more confidence, just like we've seen them do before when they're bouncing back off of a loss, especially now that they're going to be at home. So I like Goff to have a solid day, but at 6,000, I want him upwards of, 28, 30 points, and I don't see that kind of game script here. Do you?
I agree. I don't really like stacking them up because I just think it's going to be more of the running backs in the slate. The Giants are 32nd in the league EPA per rush.
Yeah.
So they're giving it up on the ground, and the Lions love to have both of their backs involved.
I should like Goff. The Giants are allowing 26 points to quarterbacks, and combine that with, Goff bouncing back. Maybe we're wrong here, but I just don't think that this, stays competitive. And I think that they lean on Gibbs and Montgomery to just get them through the day again. It's not even getting them through the day. It's just to end the day where they're already ahead.
Yeah. I think they're going to blow it out here. I like them to score over 30 points, and I've been building my lineups with probably at minimum 2 Lions players and just take my shot. Like, we watched Goff have a terrible day last week, and Jameson Williams still got it done with him. So that was
He did.
amazing to see.
Yeah, and Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't bad either. I mean, 22.6 on a bad day where they didn't have a touchdown.
Yeah.
Oh, they did have a touchdown. I'm wrong. They had one touchdown. They were still held to 9 points. So, yeah, some players can come through even on a bad day. How about Jameis Winston? Do you think that they let him go anymore here?
I think we're going to see a pretty similar story to what we saw last week, and probably much more of the running backs than we would like to see.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's move on to everybody else. So we've already talked about Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams. We like both of those to have decent days in this matchup. How about the running backs for the Giants, Tyrone Tracy or Devin Singletary? They were almost in a fair share last week with 19 and 16 carries, with Tracy getting more into the passing game. Do you like either of them?
Not with this being kind of a bad matchup against Detroit, and then they're splitting the carries to begin with. Even though they're cheaper, they are on my avoid list. They are not in my pool this week.
Yeah, there's too many other good running back plays this week. Again, but we thought that last week and they didn't really come through for us. Please don't let me ever play a running back that plays for Arthur Smith ever again in my life. We'll get to that when we talk about Pittsburgh, but I regretted that and I should have known, and he just drives me insanely mad. I don't like either of these either. Everyone's getting a little bit of a price bump too, and if I'm gonna pay for somebody, it's going to be on the Lions side.
All right. For the line side, we never do this. We never have 2 running backs on the same team. Can you do it in this spot? Because I can see a world where Gibbs and Monty both end up with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
But
but
that's not my lean.
they're both gonna have to have 100 yards as well.
Yeah. It's a lot easier for Montgomery to get there than Gibbs to get
Yeah,
to his price.
it definitely is. So to get them both to that price is really hard. It can happen, but I don't think so. It's not
I'm
the play I'm gonna go with.
leaning towards Montgomery, and just looking at snap counts of games where they're winning in versus games they're losing in. So the past like 3 examples, they've lost 2 games and won one of those. In the game where they did win, it was a full 50-50. Half Gibbs, half Montgomery, switching every other drive. In the games they lost, Gibbs was playing 70% of the snaps, and then Montgomery was playing 30% of the snaps. They lean on him when they just need the offense rolling. In this game,
Mhm.
I think they're going to move the ball, and I think they'll crush. I like Montgomery in that script.
I like Montgomery in that script and to take over a little bit more later in the game, but Gibbs still gets a touchdown. It's not gonna be all Montgomery, I don't think.
No, I'm seeing, if I had to break it down, just what I'm envisioning is in the crystal ball, it's Gibbs gets 1, Montgomery gets 2, and some random offensive lineman gets a fun one in the third quarter.
Yeah, I also like Amon-Ra St. Brown a little bit, but at 8,000, I don't think he, hits his 30 points that he would need at that price tag. But I see everybody gets a touchdown.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to feel more confident than they did last week in this
Any
matchup.
bringbacks?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. I think the only one is like maybe it works with Darius Slayton. He's more of the deep threat, and you're
Yeah.
hoping if they're down by 21 at half, then they let him air it out a little bit more. But I'm not bringing a bringback. That's how I've been making these lineups.
No, I'll just stay away from this game for the most part. Let's move on to another game I'm going to stay away from. Indianapolis Colts at the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is favored by 3.5. Over under is 50. I don't like this game. I feel totally like this may be where the wheels fall off the bus for the Colts. And this starts the downslide because they've got a rough December.
They do have a rough December. I wouldn't go that far. I'm excited for this game as an NFL fan. I'm not really interested from a DFS perspective, and I don't think it really gets to that over. I think the defenses are going to show up here, especially in Kansas City. The Colts defense is a lot healthier. They're getting back 2 of their cornerbacks from that bye. They're getting back Charvarius Ward and Kenny Moore to pair with Sauce Gardner. Like, Kenny Moore was in there, but he was a little banged up, so he's finally healthy. And that defense, when fully healthy, can be much more effective. They can get into a lot more exotic looks. They can play a lot more man. which Mahomes has been worse against in the past. I also think Kansas City's rushing defense is just going to keep the Colts in check.
I like the whole defensive mindset in this game and that both defenses play well. But if I'm betting on one of these two coaching staffs and I'm betting on one of these quarterbacks to have a better day, I'm going with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and not the Colts to have that better day, especially in Kansas City. If the defense shows up, then the real Daniel Jones is going to show up, and that's not pretty.
Yeah, he's been struggling with turnovers and taking sacks in the past couple games. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it is going to come down to the fourth quarter and probably some critical calls. So I don't really have a lean on who wins it or who covers. But as far as the options here, I'm not interested in stacking either quarterback. Do you have any interest?
No interest in stacking either quarterback. We can move on to the running backs. I'm not sure the Kansas City really has one, but so I'm going to pass on whoever they have running the ball. This isn't the week that the Colts are going to get to hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor and get 3 touchdowns out of him.
No, they also. Did you see his price?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He's crazy. 10,000.
Yeah.
10,000.
They took him off a bye and were like, I don't know, 10,000. That sounds good.
Yeah, 10,000. 40 points. Nope, not against the Chiefs defense. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be fine if Taylor beats me this week. We know, I mean, he has some of the top ceiling in the entire league, but I'm going to bet against a 10K running back.
Yeah, I am too. Any pass catchers on either side that you're interested here?
I am mildly interested in the 2 tight ends. That's the only place I'm really looking for. I don't think the wide receivers have good matchups. Pierce has been heavily involved, so he's probably the one I would go to out of any in this game. But Travis Kelce and Tyler Warren, I think, will be definitely pretty critical to both these offenses to keep the chains moving.
Yeah, I think so too. I like Kelce in this matchup, and he's 5,000. At some point, you have to decide between Travis Kelce. We haven't seen the big game from Tyler Warren, and I just don't know that we're going to this year. And I don't believe in Daniel Jones, so that limits Tyler Warren in my eyes. If I have to think of the chemistry between Mahomes and Kelce, it's a lot better than Daniel Jones and Tyler Warren. But then, at some point you're going to have to go, do you pay 5,000 for Kelce, or do we go down the board here and go get Trey McBride?
Yeah, that's true. So 5,500 for Tyler Warren doesn't really make sense in this matchup for me.
No, I'd take Kelce over Warren in this matchup, but he's still not my favorite. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move it on.
All right, New England Patriots at the Cincinnati Bengals. New England's favored by 8. Over-under is 49.5.
This one should be fun.
Where do we start?
Well,
I think, but I don't know. I mean, the Patriots are a lot better than I think a lot of us give them credit for.
Did you see Joe Burrow taking first-team reps today in practice?
I did not.
Yeah.
I don't even have him on my list. Is he has he been activated?
Let's see. His price right now, if he somehow does play, then he is sitting at, he is not even on where I'm seeing it. Let's check directly into DraftKings.
Yeah.
But we also are seeing Drake May as the most expensive option in all of the slate, which is kind of surprising considering where we started the season. He still isn't even 7K, so he's a little interesting to me. But let's see what Burrow is. He is at 6.5. So you're not really getting a discount there. Even though be a surprise for him to play, 65 is really expensive for him kind of making it back early from this injury.
Yeah, well, I guess he practiced last week too, so they must have opened his 21-day practice window last week. So at any point he can be activated and played. If he's a full participant, it's kind of looking that way, and they really need him if they're going to pull that off. That's going to change what I think in this game, obviously, and probably where I go to, because I have a lot more confidence. I don't know, Joe Burrow without a Jamar Chase. Do you like him better than Joe Flacco without a Jamar Chase?
Yeah, I don't honestly think it's going to change the perspective of the game too much for me. Flacco had been kind of getting it done. So it's not going to change too much to me. We just can't even consider Flacco as an option at 5,500. But I do think Drake May and the Pats are going to move the ball. It's just trying to hit the Patriots game, the spin the wheel of who it's going to be this week.
Yeah, I love Drake May, and if the Bengals can keep up, but the Patriots have been good. Their defense hasn't been bad, so the Bengals will have to keep up to push them just a little bit even, and that could happen. But at 6,900, I mean, he's expensive. He does rush, but I don't see the Bengals as chasing him around and making him rush. Do you?
No, I don't think they'll apply much pressure to him, and he probably is not going to be scrambling too much in this one. But I also don't think they'll need him to do too much. When you just factor in all of the different options here, they'll probably have Ramondre back. So then you have both running backs involved and just a full onslaught of wide receiving options that we have to pick from. It kind of limits Drake May's ceiling. And if we don't think he's getting the rushing touchdown, do we think he can pay off being the most expensive quarterback on the slate? My bet would be no, and we can probably find a cheaper option later on.
Yeah, mine too. And my cheaper option isn't Flacco, but maybe it should be. And we'll have to see how that whole Burrow situation pans out at the end of this week, which could be at least more exciting to watch. So let's move on to everyone else. We don't have to worry about Jamar Chase this week because he decided to go get himself ejected.
And his appeal was
for a game.
Swiftly rejected, so it's going to stand.
So he's out. T. Higgins gets $1,000 price bump for this week to 7,100. Is it all going to Higgins? How about Yosevich? Do you like him anymore, or should we be looking at Chase Brown, who last week also got 8 targets?
Yeah, it's tough with the price increase for T. He just hasn't been, getting the double-digit targets that we would need from like an elite option at wide receiver. We know he's extremely explosive, so he can house anything. And I'm actually a little bit more interested in him if Burrow is back. I feel like that does make a difference for T. Higgins especially. The other person I want to bring up for getting a big bump without Chase would be Noah Fant for Cincinnati. That's where New England is kind of the weakest on defense, is to the tight end and then their linebackers and coverage. So Noah Fant does get involved, and the tight ends, we've seen this in the past. Last year, it was T. Higgins getting hurt, and then Gesicki popping up for those huge games. So I think we can see a similar story here without Chase, that Noah Fant is more involved in that passing game.
I think so too. It's not a game that I've been in love with, but it's definitely one to be considering. I do like the New England running backs, even with Ramondre coming back. I think Ramondre could be a really sneaky play here. He's down to 5,200, and we know that Mike Vrabel loves to have that running back share. So we're going to, push Travion back down a little bit, just because it's not now the Travion Henderson show. Even though he got 32 points last week, I can see Mike Vrabel going, nope, here comes Stevenson, and he's back to his primary role and switching that back up. So at 5,200, don't mind the Ramondre Stevenson play.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of, you can't really take it back. And once you've seen how good Travion Henderson is, it's probably going to be a full 50-50 backfield. That's what I'm imagining.
Probably.
And then I would expect Travion to be more efficient with his touches. But I would imagine Ramondre is probably still the goal line back too, which does limit Travion's upside.
It does. At 5,200, I'm kind of willing to put him in there to save some money, and I think he could easily score his 22 points that he needs, get a couple touchdowns in this game, because it could be high scoring and it could be a very big ground affair for the New England Patriots, who do like to run that ball.
For the passing options real quick on the Patriots, I'm really liking Diggs and Hunter Henry in their matchups against this Cincinnati secondary. That's where I'm seeing it. I don't really like Boutte if he's back, and then I'm not really believing in Mac Hollins. Stephon Diggs just getting the short yardage area targets. I think he should have a pretty good game.
I don't think they need to pass it much in this matchup. So I'm out, especially with Boutte coming back. It does look like he probably will be back. I just don't think they get pushed just like they didn't last week. And when they weren't pushed last week by the Jets, we got very average scores out of everyone except Travion Henderson.
Very true.
I think that repeats in this game. They have just such an easy rushing matchup against the Bengals. Let's move on. Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. Philadelphia is favored by 3.5. Over under is 48.5. Philly is like the fun killer, fun offense killer. They just grind games to a snarl and nothing seems to happen.
Yeah, and not only that, but like, I mean, we love the Lions and we love playing the Lions in DFS, and they just took the fun out of the game. They like killed both sides of the ball, and they don't even remember how talented their roster is. They
Yeah.
have, I mean, I was interested. The first thing that was one of the first things when I noticed when I was going through prices this week is how cheap that Philly stack is. When's the last time that you could get Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith for about 18K? It seems ridiculous. And with the amount of talent in that stack and how cheap it is, like, it was initially my option. I do want to build some lineups where I'm fully into this game. It's still relatively high over under 48.5. And it's a pretty high pace, a pretty high explosive ranking. I mean, the Cowboys defense will do that to games. But so I either want to be fully into this game and probably just have like one lineup that is all about this Philly Dallas game, or be completely off of it and say Philly's defense kills it.
Yeah, I'm on the Phillies defense kills it. Holding the Lions to 9 points. I don't feel like the Cowboys are a better team than the Lions, and I don't see any way this is basically not the same game as last week. And for that reason, I've just been out on this. On the Dallas side, things are too pricey for me to get into, and I don't know. It's just like the Eagles don't push to be that high scoring offense unless they have to.
Yeah. So I,
It,
I there's just so much talent on these teams that I want a piece. I want a lineup that has the Philly stack and either Pickens or Lamb. There's so many names in this that, you know, we always have a couple of those divisional games that come out of nowhere and have crazy over-unders. Also, the
yeah, we
Dallas
do.
defense is so bad. They just sit there and can be picked apart. So maybe Philly just accidentally remembers they're a good offense.
Maybe they'll accidentally remember Jalen Hurts. He did rush 10 times last week, so I'm pretty interested in that. But does he have to run in this game, or does he just give it to Saquon Barkley?
I think they can get away with being inefficient in this game. The defense is just so good, it's clicking after that bye, that they can hand it off to Barkley, even though he hasn't been good on the ground, and probably get away with a win. The
Yeah.
true potential in this game is if Dallas, finds some breaks in that Philly defense.
If they can, yeah, make some connections and get Pickens and CD Lamb the ball again like
Hmm.
they did last week. But I just don't see it happening. I don't think that Dak is going to pass for multiple touchdowns against the Eagles defense. So I'm out on Dak Prescott as well. Jalen Hurts, I could play standalone. You don't even have to. If you play Hurts, then you're kind of off of Barkley. You're betting on Hurts getting the rushing touchdowns at the goal line, which definitely could be the play here. And we've seen that he doesn't have to pass the ball to have big numbers either. He's going to be rushing the ball in. So at 6,600, Jalen Hurts is kind of an interesting standalone play out of this game. Let's move on to everybody else. If I had told you in August the Saquon Barkley would be 7,500 and Jonathan Taylor 10K
Yeah,
in week 12, you wouldn't have believed it.
no. Barkley at 7.5. He hasn't had that. We've seen one game. He had that one game, I
Yeah.
believe, against the Giants where he had the breakaway runs, but they just have not been coming this year. They also, their offensive line is very banged up. So Lane Johnson might miss. They're all pro tackle, which does kind of put a damper on the running game as well. I
Yep.
also, on the other side of the ball, for the two Dallas wide receivers, George Pickens, his worst game of the entire season did come against this Philly defense week 1. So some little caveat there, even though he scored 30 points last week.
Yeah, I don't think he repeats this week. So I've been mostly staying away from this game. There are pieces, like I said, that I like, but it's usually the Eagles running game and nothing else. I mean, the Cowboys are going to be throwing it, but man, I just can't get over the Lions being held to 9 points last week.
Yeah.
Let's move on then. Jacksonville at Arizona. Jacksonville is favored by 2.5, and the over/under is 47.5. I'm a little surprised Jacksonville's favored, but I guess the Cardinals are 3-7. Just doesn't seem like the Jaguars are actually 6-4.
No, it seems like they take every other week off, and they showed up last week against the Chargers. So I'm kind of with you. I like Arizona at home here.
I do too. They were fun to watch last week against the 49ers, even though they were getting their butt kicked. Letting Jacoby Brissett pass it for 57 times.
He set the
That's
NFL
crazy.
completion record last week.
Yeah. I mean, he had a completion rate of 82%.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable on 57 attempts in my mind. And you lose. And you only put up 22 points. I don't understand how all of that happens in one game. But that being said, fantasy wise, everyone was perfectly fine, even though they only scored the 22 points, which is a little bit unusual, I feel like. It was just the number of plays and the number of passes were incredible in this game.
This game was like the true mirror image of that Bills Tampa Bay game, where you're watching the Bills Tampa Bay game score every 2 minutes and like just go back and forth. And then you're checking your fantasy team going, where are the points? Where are they going? And then the Cardinals managed to only put up 20, but everyone crushed at their price. Dortch had a good day. Wilson had a good day. Brissett and McBride. Part of that comes down to the pace that these Cardinals play at, and also Jacksonville too. These teams are 1-2 in the entire NFL in pace. So I think that really helps us get value out of these PPR wide receivers. Like we saw Michael Wilson get 18 targets last week.
Yeah, we did. Let's go through the quarterbacks real quick before we get to the wide receivers and see who you're taking, if anyone. Jacoby Brissett, he bumped up to $400 this week to $5,300, and then Trevor Lawrence is remaining flat at $5,100. If you had to take one of these quarterbacks, which one are you going with, or do you like both of them?
I would go Brissett. I mean,
yeah,
Brissett has been crushing it. It's been like 4 straight weeks now, and they don't have a running game to rely on, and he's getting it done. He looks pretty good. Also, Lawrence, if I can avoid playing Trevor Lawrence, then I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I avoid Trevor Lawrence. I feel like his coach, Liam Cohen, has figured out how to avoid Trevor Lawrence, and that's how they win, is by containing the mistakes that Trevor Lawrence has the opportunity to make, which means you're going to go for short passes and you're going to run the ball and you're going to not let Trevor make any big mistakes.
Yeah.
So I'm out on Trevor. I do love the Brissett play at 5,300. He can 5 times here. If he just, gets in another touchdown. He only had 2 passing touchdowns last week, and he still had almost 27 fantasy points. So if he gets another touchdown or he rushes a touchdown in, because he can definitely run the ball. He didn't last week. He only ran it twice, but he was finding open wide receivers apparently at 82% completion rate and 57 attempts. So I love the Brissett play.
Same. And then Jacksonville's defense has not been showing up on the road as much as at home. So I think it's a better play here.
I think so too. Let's go on to the running backs in this game. The Cardinals have opened Trey Benson's 21-day practice window earlier this week, and he practiced in full. He was limited. He was a limited participant on Wednesday. I haven't seen on Thursday yet what he did, but he has the potential to play this week. I lean towards he doesn't play this week since they just opened the practice window. How about you?
That's what I'm thinking. I was trying to remember if they're coming off the bye, because then that kind of messes up when they open up the window. But no, they played last week. They played last week. Yeah, that was too.
Yeah. So I think he doesn't play. It would change things up a little bit, but I think we get the same players that we had last week. We're not going to see Marvin Harrison Jr. again after his appendix surgery. No surprise there. Abdominal surgery. You need to miss more than 1 week. So he's going to be out, and that's going to leave us with Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, and Trey McBride.
Yeah.
And then they all repeat?
I like the wide receiving options, and part of it is because I do not like Amari DiMercato or Bam Knight. So I think they're just probably going to go with the same script as last week of let Brissett chuck it and about 50 times. And if I'm distributing it out to Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, and Greg Dortch, there's enough for all three of them. They're at their current price.
Yeah, I think so too. They did see price increases. Michael Wilson got $1,000 price increase, which is better than his player props, which we'll talk about on our prop show because they still think he's only getting 4.5 catches. So I'm pretty willing to go in on that. But $1,000 price bump, he's still now 4,800. So he's a bargain. He can 4 times this easy and not even be near his numbers last week. Greg Dortch, 4,300. Don't like him as much, but he's definitely in play. You know, he can deliver as well. And then there's our favorite, Trey McBride at 6,800. What do you think about McBride?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up Trey McBride because I do think there are a couple value plays at tight end that you can get away with slotting in a tight end, but I've been interested in McBride as my flex. And if we just think about McBride as a wide receiver at 6.8, I think he's still very interesting. Like the other wide receivers in that price range are kind of awkward. Like you have Jefferson at 7.4, Pickens, which against the Eagles defense at 6.9, Diggs and Olave. So I like McBride better than those options in that range, and I think he fits in kind of with a 2 tight end build because he's basically a wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. And he is a wide receiver, and those high price tight ends, that's what they need to be considered, is more in that wide receiver flex role. How about on the Jaguars side? I, with all the talk that we just did about don't let Trevor Lawrence throw it, I like Travis Etienne, especially it's looking like Bashal Tutin might be out a week with an injury.
Yeah, he was limited today with the ankle injury. Even if his snaps come down and it's more of like a 70-30, it was almost like 50-50 last week. And Bashal had a great game too, but I think Travis Etienne will probably see an uptick in his workload. And it's a pretty good matchup. You can run on the Cardinals. So I think if this game stays competitive, then that's the route.
Yeah, I do like Etienne. I failed to mention that he was actually limited as well, and he's beat up with a shoulder injury, but he's been playing through that shoulder injury the last few weeks. But last week when Bashal Tutin went out of the game, then we saw LeQuint Allen get in the mix. So he is in here too. I don't know. Can we lean on Etienne, or are you just staying away from that whole
My lean would be Etienne out of any of them here. I think it is maybe a little bit more likely that maybe Jacksonville doesn't show up quite as much and they're a lower scoring team, but I think the Cardinals are still going to have to air it out to move the ball at all.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the Jaguars will figure out a way to put up points. They've been figuring that out. I mean, they even put points up against the Houston defense, which not many teams have done.
True.
And they didn't do that really passing too much.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Chicago Bears. Chicago's favored by 3, over-unders 45.5. Do we see Aaron Rodgers with his wrist injury, or do we get Mason Rudolph here?
I'm thinking Mason Rudolph. I mean, that is a 40-year-old man with a broken hand. I don't know if I'm sending him out there in an NFL game. So I think we're going to see Rudolph. Rudolph looked, I mean, he's like a respectable backup. He's gotten a lot of reps in the league. I think he will be fine, but probably not contribute much for fantasy. How do you see it?
Yeah, I see it the same way. Unfortunately, he got a $700 price bump here in DraftKings to $4,700. I like him a lot better at his $4,000. I don't know. I got this vision, of Aaron Rodgers with his arm taped behind his back, running around just trying to pass it with one arm for some reason.
Was it his throwing hand or his offhand?
No, it's his non-throwing hand. And it's not broken. So
okay, that makes it a little bit more
on that. But so there is some question on if he will play, but at the same time, like you said, he's a 40-year-old man and things hurt a lot more when you're that old. So I think we do get Mason Rudolph. Rudolph looked okay, and do I think he can 4 times his salary at $4,700? That's 18 points. Going against the Chicago defense, I think he can. I think the Bears are going to put up points as well to keep it interesting. It just comes down to, do they trust Rudolph to attempt to do it and to throw it, or do they get down that much? And the Steelers defense hasn't exactly been very good.
Yeah, they've been very hit or miss. They have allowed like over 30 points 4 times on the season, but they've also held opponents to 12 or less 3 times. So we don't really know which Steelers defense is going to show up this week. I think it makes it a little interesting to kind of read into that unpredictability, but I don't like Mason Rudolph solely for the fact that you can run on the Bears. And I think Mike Tomlin with a backup quarterback is just going to sit there with Kenny Gainwell or Jalen Warren, whoever he has at his disposal to run that ball.
I'm not going to pick. I learned my lesson last week. I'm not going in on a running back that plays for Arthur Smith and try to figure out who he's going to run against me, because whenever I think I know what running back he might have, then he goes and finds somebody else.
So if Jalen Warren misses, are you interested in Caleb Johnson, the third string?
Yeah, I think I am.
In.
Well, I don't know. They seem to hate him. They really just hate him. It would be interesting because they can't use just one. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So I think if Jalen Warren's gone, I'm interested in Kenny Gainwell. He can get it done against the bad, but he got his price raised $1,400 from last week, which was ridiculous.
Apparently, DraftKings thinks that he is the one that they hate, Caleb Johnson, and that Warren isn't going to play.
Yeah. Which we did see him catch 7 passes for 80 yards and a couple touchdowns. And so then if he's also getting the work on the ground, it's easy to get to that $5,500 price.
This is true. It is. He's not a bad play. It's hard to ignore him. I just was insane last week watching the Steelers play.
All right.
I like DK Metcalf. I feel like with Rudolph in, this is like a fresh start for DK Metcalf. I think they're going to have to pass it. I don't think they can solely rely on the rush in this game, that the Bears are going to put up points as well. And with the Bears putting up points, they're going to have to let Mason Rudolph pass it. And DK Metcalf is huge. He's a big target, and the Bears will give up points and let him get open. So
yeah,
I DK Metcalf at 5,300 is just way too talented to ignore on the slate in this matchup.
5,300 has me interested. The problem, he just hasn't looked too interested in the game and just engaged in the game. Maybe it's because he knows that the ball's just getting tossed to the tight ends instead, and he's just running dummy routes. But I don't know. He hasn't.
Aaron Rodgers would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers did that last year at the Jets, too. You know, Garrett Wilson was no longer interested because Aaron Rodgers picks his favorite and just makes everybody crazy and look bad. And I feel like DK Metcalf is in that Aaron Rodgers poison right now, and maybe he gets out of it with Mason Rudolph.
Maybe. I don't think I'm going there in my lineups, but I do kind of like thinking where if the Bears get to that 30 point, let's say the Steelers defense have their off game and they decide to give up 30 points, which of the wide receivers, which of these Bears are we going with? Because they have like 7 names for us to choose from. We got 2 tight ends, we've got like 3 wide receivers, and then 2 running backs now. So it's hard to pick and choose.
It is hard to pick and choose. I tend to go to Odunze. I love Odunze when things are tough, but I don't know how tough this is, and you do get to spread it around. So maybe they spread it around to try to win this game, and we should not be playing these wide receivers and trying to pick and choose.
I think I'm leaning towards the cheaper options, where just because it is probably going to be spread around, I'm interested in Luther Burden. I think he just has a good matchup. He finally overtook Zacchaeus in like routes run. So he's getting on the field more. It's normal to get rookies more involved. We saw like that happen with Loveland. Loveland's kind of moved to their tight end one and replaced Kmet. So I think Luther Burden will continue getting more targets drawn up for him.
I think so too. And at 3,600, I do like him. I like the cheaper plays because we aren't. I mean, you look at this list, and anytime that I'm presenting a list with more than 12, sometimes I can only like find 9 people in a game where we know exactly where the ball's going. In this game, this ball is getting spread out all over the place, and you can clearly see it because we've got 14 people on this list, and I think I'm even missing one, and no one has double-digit targets.
Yeah.
The only thing that's clear here is that DeAndre Swift is the preferred running back, but he's still in a share with Kyle Monangai.
Yeah, this game is second in my explosive, like predicted explosive rate. So I think the way I'm looking at this game is it's really good for finding cheaper options that give you high ceiling. Your Luther Burdens, your DK Metcalfs. You can put in that mini stack with a bunch of other studs to kind of round out your lineup.
Yep. All right, let's move it on to the New York Jets at the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's favored by 13.5. Over under is 44.5. Is this just a Derrick Henry game, or should we be looking at either of the quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards Derrick Henry. I also think that, well, we are going to see Tyrod Taylor, but I think that it's just going to be a slower game. I think that the Jets are in a similar position where they are trying to lose respectably here. So they'll probably keep it a slower pace of game. Baltimore also likes to play slow. This is the slowest predicted game on the slate. So I'm really kind of off of it from a whole.
Yeah, I'm definitely off any of the quarterbacks. I did not realize Tyrod Taylor had already gotten the start, so but it didn't really matter. Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor, neither of them I have any interest in. Lamar Jackson at 6,700. He doesn't look like Lamar Jackson, so I'm going to stay away from him as well. He had 4 rush attempts last week and 2 interceptions. I'll just stay out of that quarterback room. Yeah, my only interest would be Derrick Henry, and that's only because of he's just such a giant home favorite. 13.5 point favorite. Those are the running backs at home that you look for. So he did get bumped $1,000. He didn't have that, he had a solid performance last week, getting 100 yards and a touchdown, but he didn't warrant $1,000 bump. So I think the bump is because of the game environment.
I think the best thing it was to see from Derrick Henry last week was that 59-yard run. Just knowing he still has that in the tank at his
Yeah.
age is nice, because there's some where it's like once you lose that long speed, you can never get it back. So he still has the potential at a 13.5. He comes down to roster percentage to me. If
Mhm.
he's a popular play, I'm probably going to be off of him. But if he's just somehow getting lost with the other running backs, I would love to have a bunch of Derrick Henry in my tournament lineups.
Very good point. Yeah, watch that percentage owned and watch out for Derrick Henry because he could definitely be a game changer here. I'm out on everyone else.
Same.
All right, let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay is favored by 6.5. Over under is 40.5. We're getting down there now. We had a bunch at the top, and now we're going down to the bottom. This game seems like it could just be a real stinker. I looked at weather. Weather's not a factor anywhere, so that's fine. That's not going to make this be. It's just going to be the play that is just going to be mind numbing, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it still might be where you see it on the ticker and you're like, it's a 6-3 game. Like, is it a blizzard in Green Bay? And you turned on and they're just punting back and forth.
Yeah, I don't see this being fun. Jordan Love, JJ McCarthy. No.
Yeah, this is
Do
the
you have
third
any
slowest
interest?
in terms of
Yeah.
pace and the worst game as far as explosive rate. I'm not interested in any of these pieces here. JJ McCarthy has not shown me he can get it done for these wide receiving options. So Justin Jefferson is just off until further notice. And also Green Bay
Yes.
is just so banged up. I think missing Tucker Kraft until they get Jaden Reed back, I don't think I can go into this Green Bay offense.
Yeah, missing Tucker Kraft is painful. I would say the only play here that I have interest in is if Josh Jacobs is out. He got injured last week. I don't know if he is practicing this week, but if he's out, Emmanuel Wilson at 5,300 has to be an option.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think Jacobs probably plays. Whenever the first news you hear about an injury is it's not season ending, you're like, okay, then I don't
Yeah.
think he's playing the next week.
Listen,
So Emmanuel Wilson is interesting. The Vikings are just pretty stingy on the run.
yeah, they both are. So both sides, I think we get a lot of defense, and I would bet on the under on this game. Let's go on to the Seattle Seahawks at the Tennessee Titans. Seattle is favored by 13.5. Over under is 40.5. Seattle's coming in off of the tough, ugly loss to the Rams, where Sam Darnold had a rough day throwing 4 interceptions. Does he get right in this one? And is there any way you could pay off 5,400?
Yeah, Darnold cannot play the Rams. That has been concluded. He's lost to them now 3 times in a row. in the past 2 seasons while playing great in the other games. I think maybe they take it out against the Titans here. The only way I see this game hitting the over 40.5 is if Seattle scores 42. But that's about it. So I like the running backs here. I'm off the passing games, but the running backs have some interest.
The running backs definitely, especially Ken Walker. I think he's probably in the best place here at 5,400. But Charbonnet, they're doing a share, but Walker's seeing more the 60%, and he's seeing a little bit more of the passing game, I believe. I don't know that they end up passing it much at all in this game, and so I'm out on JSN this week. It's always hard to be out on JSN, but even if he's involved, he's not going to get 12 targets in this game. This is just a game where everyone feels bad for the Titans, I think. And you don't necessarily want to run up the score. You just want to get the game over and leave with your W and nobody getting hurt.
Yeah. And I think this game might be very reminiscent of what we saw from 2 weeks ago with the Seahawks, where they beat the Cardinals handily and Sam Darnold had 12 passing attempts. So It's just impossible to pay off a 9K salary for JSN at that volume. I do like Ken Walker here. His coach has been talking up too. McDonald was talking about how he needs to get more carries and is a bad rushing defense that is without their best tackle with Jeff Simmons on IR still.
Yeah, you're going to see Walker in my lineups for sure. I love him in this matchup. Let's move on to Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans is favored by 1.5. Over-unders 39.5. New Orleans is the only defense in the NFL that has not given up a top 10 fantasy performance at any position.
That's amazing. I was
very surprised when I queried that. Houston is a close second. They gave up 1.
But you do not think about New Orleans as an intimidating matchup for your fantasy players.
No, I thought something was wrong. I had to go looking. New Orleans or Houston being in there, was comforting. I'm like, okay, I can see that one. But I did not realize that about New Orleans, that they pretty much, they're just not giving up big plays.
Yeah, they limit the explosives. I also think we're not going to like the product we see out of the Falcons and Kirk Cousins, and probably no Drake London too for that side of the ball.
Okay. So yeah, Penix is out. We get Kirk Cousins. Cousins has not looked very good when we have seen him the couple times this year. He looks scary bad. I don't know who's even behind him, but we might end up finding out in a week or two because Cousins just is kind of amazing at this point. So I'm out on Cousins. Any interest in Tyler Shuck?
No.
4,400.
I know Bryce Young.
He needs 18 points.
I know Bryce Young set the franchise record against his Falcons, but I kind of just view that as a Bryce Young thing. I think the Falcons defense is still, in general, pretty good. I think Bryce Young just has their number and just dominates that matchup for some reason. But I think that this game is just going to be a dud, and I don't see it going anywhere, even at a 44, or 40, 4,400 price. I don't think we're going to get enough in this game.
So he only needs 18 points. And the Falcons are allowing over 20 points a game to quarterbacks in their last 5 games. Could happen.
It could happen.
He's a cheap option. I don't mind him, but I actually like Alvin Kamara a lot better. I think you can also run against the Falcons. The Falcons defense hasn't looked good over the last 5 weeks. And I think in this matchup that Kamara has a great option, and he's 5,500. I can see them doing a lot of running.
Yeah, I do like that here. Kamara is very interesting at 5,500. He's kind of right in that middle. The problem is there's just so many at that range. We're talking like Ken Walker, David Montgomery, Emmanuel Wilson. He's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle for me, so I haven't seen him pop up in my lineups. I've really just been avoiding this game. If Drake London misses, can I talk you into Kyle Pitts with Kirk Cousins?
No.
Kirk Cousins does target Pitts a lot more than Penix has, and he's had some good games in the past. I'm out of the wide receivers. I think Pitts is the only option I'd be remotely interested in.
I'm off of Bijan. I'm off of all of the Falcons. Pitts would be the only one because he's cheap that you could make an argument for. But I honestly feel like this entire team defense included, gives up the minute that Kirk Cousins walks on that field. That there is something about him that they don't believe they can win with Cousins on the field.
Also, he's so well. It's like Kirk Cousins was fun to watch a couple years ago, but it's just been tough the past couple seasons, and he's so limited on his mobility that it actually affects the running game too, because you actually can't put him under center, and the running game just takes such a hit when you're doing all of these runs out of shotgun instead of under center.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the play might be Tyler Algier, because when Bijan can't run, they do seem to lean a little bit heavier on Algier. So if they can't run the ball, then Algier at 4,500 could be getting a lot of work. And if they can get anywhere near the goal line, we know they love Algier.
Yeah, very true.
Let's move on to our last game and not spend a lot of time there either. Cleveland Browns at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 3, over-unders 36.5.
You tell me you're not stacking Shedeur Sanders in his first start?
I'm not. Nope, not even at 4,200. No, I'll just stay away from this game. The Raiders defense, both of these defenses have played well this year.
Yeah.
Even though they're both 2-8, their defense doesn't look like what is to be blamed in that. I think this is just a big another big standoff game where, we get a 9-3 game.
I think it's going to be ugly. And we've already seen 3 separate occasions where this Las Vegas team has not scored a touchdown on the season, which is insane. And then add in the Cleveland defense and then Shedeur Sanders to this mix. This could be like a 10-point game total. And also with Ashton Genty, he had 6 carries for 7 yards with a long of 11 last week. There's just no way that any piece is playable here.
No, I don't think so either. The most playable piece is probably Quinshon Judkins, but I'm not buying into it either.
I do kind of think they're going to give Quinshon a bunch of work because I think Stefanski hates Shedeur. And I think he is starting him basically against his will. I would not be surprised if Sanders has like under 15 attempts and they just run the ball, even if it's not working throughout the game.
Yes. I can see that definitely happening, and we'll probably see then some Dylan Sampson as well, more than we probably want to see. All right, should we just move off of that game and on to our lineups?
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm going right back to Jacoby Brissett and those 57 pass attempts, even if it's cut down to, let's say, 40 pass attempts against the Jaguars. I think he's more successful at scoring than maybe he was against the 49ers. And that changes the game script a little bit. So I'm also leaning towards no Trey Benson in this lineup. So I'm stacking him again with Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. I'm going right back there. It's really hard to repeat, but the Jaguars just set this game up too well, and it being at home. So I like it, especially without having the running options for the Cardinals. The running backs that I'm filling in this game or in my lineup are with Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's got a great matchup against the against the Giants to get right. And I like Alvin Kamara in that matchup against the Falcons as well. So I'm going with those 2 at running back. My wide receivers to round things out, I'm going with Rome Odunze. I know you were kind of off of Odunze and like the cheaper options there, but I think they need somebody to step up, and that's going to be Odunze to deliver a big performance in this matchup against Pittsburgh. So I like him. And then I like the other side of that too. So DK Metcalf. So if this gets to be a super competitive game, I think it's got to be the 2 go-to people with Odunze and Metcalf. I'm going to round all that out with Kenneth Walker just getting the ball and getting it done in Tennessee for the Seattle Seahawks. And my defense is the Saints against Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, the Saints, we kind of glossed over that defense, but it's like we bullied the Atlanta offense, and I think the Saints at 2,500 is tough to avoid, really.
Yes, I think so too. They are the cheapest playable defense that I found.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if it's like 60% of the field, but they're just so good that I think you will almost need to have them.
I think so too. All right, what's your lineup?
Okay, so the lineup I have here is this this is the narrative that Vrabel sees Drake May is the MVP option right now. And he says, we're playing Cincinnati. We're putting up those stats. And so I'm taking a Drake May stack with Stephon Diggs. And then for my running backs, I want Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm also taking Jameson Williams in that game too. Just want the lines there. And then I'm taking Ken Walker at 5,400. He's going to be tough for me to avoid in my lineups. And then also the Cardinals. So they're just too cheap for that pace. Give me Michael Wilson. Give me Trey McBride, even with their uptick price. I'm affording this with a cheaper tight end. So I'm playing 2 tight ends. Trey McBride's really my flex wide receiving, but Noah Fant is kind of the who I think will get it done without Chase. And then I'm rounding it out with the Saints.
All right, I like it.
Only other option I have here is the alternative to go fully in, because it's just ridiculous the names you can get if you go into that Philly-Dallas game. You can get Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, CeeDee Lamb, and Pickens with David Montgomery and Ken Walker, and then a Hunter Henry and Saints to round that out.
You know, I don't buy into it, but there's so much talent on that lineup that it's hard not to play it.
Yeah. Where that's more of, if you're going for first in the lineup and you're saying this is the game, you're either going fully in. There's no half measures with that game.
Nope. You got to just jump on into it. So, well, that's all for week 12. Drop your favorite plays in the comments, and we will see you all next week for week 13.